Whether I pinpoint to reach this job when I was still young, I don't recall it. But what I do recall is that since I started to learn Arabic at a very early age, and then during high school, I took as a majors the Arabic language and history of the Middle East. It was quite obvious that direction in life that I would pursue would most probably be anything which is in the field of security, intelligence, psychology, war, politics, and this kind of topics, which succeeded pretty much to my satisfaction, and I very much want to believe that I also succeeded to live up to the expectations of those who assigned me to the job.
Wow, Arabic at 6 years old, it's quite a feat. You speak now Hebrew, Arabic, English. Are there any other languages?
Yeah, Farsi.
Farsi, of course.
And I also understand German.
Wow, I read in the book, you talk about the time you and your wife Yael spent in Tehran, or not in Tehran, but in Iran. You were in the southern part, I believe.
Correct.
Of Iran, and you talked there about how in preparation you took lessons in Farsi and Arabic and in the dialect, and that Yael also had to undergo some of this. Did she have any prior experience? Did she know what she was signing up for, or
no,
she just got to come along with you?
The exact answer is that before we left for Iran, she took sometimes all sorts of trainings and preparations, which is a rule in the organizations when families go abroad together. Both sides are getting their preparations and training and so on. So she did have something, and if I remember correctly, I mentioned in the book that her responsibility was to keep up a clandestine kind of a photography laboratory, which we had.
Wow. Was this an interest of hers, or this was a byproduct of marrying you that she ended up in the intelligence service adjacent?
Yeah, she is a sociologist as a profession. She graduated the Hebrew University, and then, by the way, she immediately after her military service, she spent a year in Canada, in Montreal, and she attended McGill University.
Wow.
So, and that's why, while in Iran, she was a Canadian.
Now, in your book, you talk about some of your experiences as director of the Mossad, and during your tenure, during those 7 years, you witnessed some really major events on the world stage and in Israel's history: the end of the Cold War, the Oslo Accords, the peace agreement with Jordan, sadly, the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. What were the most difficult moments to navigate as director in terms of these events? Which proved really to be the most significant in terms of your role in Israel's future?
Personally and emotionally, the most difficult experience was the assassination of of the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Um, we were very close to each other. We have worked for many years together, not only when he was the Prime Minister, but also during he served as the Minister of Defense. And the event was an experience of the kind that we have never experienced before as a nation, as a state, as private people. So when it comes to personal feelings and emotions, sentiments, this was I believe the most hard experience during the. Now professionally, I believe that one of the one of the most important events during my tenure was the end of the Cold War and the demise of the Soviet Union as a global power. And one of the uh, one of the most important changes which took place in the Mossad as such, as a result of this event, was that until the end of the Cold War, we were a sort of a regional intelligence organization. Um, and immediately after the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, we realized that whether we liked it or not, we had to start and behave and prepare ourselves to become a global kind of an intelligence officers, intelligence organization. Because as a result, one of the major results of the Cold War was that the two major topics of the list of requirement of the Israeli intelligence organizations was the proliferation of non-conventional weapons and global terrorism. These two topics took us in order to address these issues and to be able to do what was required from us, which was to collect information and to do whatever is necessary to block and to address, on one hand, the terrorist events globally, and on the other hand, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, um, which the answer to build the capability of these kind of weapons was spread all over the world. Um, I mean, a country that decides to pursue the non-conventional track, which includes also surface-to-surface missiles and other kinds of weapon system, you have to look for them all over the world. And we, being an intelligence organization which has the assignment to follow it, it took us to planet Earth as a whole, which was not the case before.
Wow. Well, you talk in the book about how previous to the fall of the Soviet Union, right, the world was really bipolar in terms of its power structure. Countries were kind of aligned with the United States, the Soviet Union, or they were the kind of third party ones that were just staying out of everything. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, you talk about how the United States missed this opportunity and that the world is now multipolar. There's regional powers and there's struggles all over, and there is no clear kind of almost in a way this the you talked about you I think you used the phrase that it was almost absurd the way that this constant fighting between the two led to a sense of security versus now the
Yeah,
world's a little bit more messy. Given
correct.
that divide of power everywhere, I'm curious, how important is the relationship now between Israel and the United States, given that the United States isn't necessarily what it once was?
Well, I'll express, of course, my my personal opinion and thinking, and I'm not at all shy to say that Israel, in order to flourish and to live in peace or relative peace, um, with all the capabilities that we have today in order to defend ourselves in times where it is being needed. The relationship between Israel and the United States is conditional. I mean, it should be addressed as a given. We need it. We cannot be what we are without it. And based on this thought, it means that we have an obligation towards the United States to behave as qui pro quo, and that is not to say that we have to say amen to any American demand or wish or requirement, but we should bear this very basic fact in our hands at all times.
As my question is more also, given that at one point it was really between choosing sides of the United States or the Soviet Union, versus now there are so many other powers and different groups and regionals powers emerging. How important is it now for Israel to have relationships with these other countries beyond just the United States, since the United States doesn't necessarily have as much say in the world stage as it once had?
Personally, I very much hope that the United States will become again the leading power in the world. But yes, you're right. Now we have during the Cold War, the world was by far simpler in the sense that we had two blocks of countries, uh, only two superpowers in the world, and it was by far more easier to to rule this kind of a global structure. We had the red line between the Kremlin and the White House, which enabled the top leaders of these two blocs to handle any eventuality which take place in the world, and to control uh, crises even before they start to deteriorate. Today, we don't have it. Today, we have a competition first and foremost between China and the US, Russia, which wants to get the acknowledgement that that Russia is also an equal member in this club. Neither the US nor China, to the best of my evaluation, they prefer to keep Russia sort of a second-grade kind of a world power and not equal one. And each one of these countries is trying to expand its influence, its control, and so on, which makes the world by far less stable than it used to be during the Cold War.
Well, going back now a little bit, also, I mean, along the lines of the United States and your time in Iran, you talk about Iran in length in the book. I mean, it was your first posting in Mossad, as well as obviously a source of much instability in the region. And in the book, you outline your thoughts on different scenarios. So I'm curious because you talk about your feelings on the Iran nuclear deal, which I know many in the Jewish community here in North America have very, very strong feelings about. There are many Jews who are critical of President Obama's deal with Iran, and President Trump reversed course, seeking more to put pressure on the country rather than reaching out a hand. But now President Biden has announced just about a week and a half ago, about 10 days or so ago, that he's ready to join talks with Iran and world powers to discuss a return to that 2015 nuclear deal. How would that impact Israel? And in your opinion, is it possible to bring about a nuclear free Iran through relationships as opposed through the, I guess, the carrot as opposed to the stick?
Well, that's a very difficult question, because what we do know so far about President Biden's intentions is very little, and we'll have to play it by ear in order to learn more and more on his intentions and the policy, which is only starting to shape. Now, the argument which is going on is between the present government of Israel and the U.S. If we try to crystallize the issue, the government of Israel believes that the world should prevent Iran from having the nuclear capability. Period. And in order to achieve this goal, everything and every capability is justified to use in order to reach this end. The others believe in coping with this problem differently, by political means, by economic means, by international coalitions that should put their pressure, but the clear-cut military answer is very hard to choose, and it's very hard to accomplish. Now, if we monitor the present Middle East, we have a Muslim country, Pakistan, that have already nuclear and military nuclear capabilities. We have, and India is already beyond the official definition of the Middle East, but India and Pakistan both of them are considered as nuclear powers, and the relationship between them is not a very friendly one. As a matter of fact, they live in a constant conflict where any few years it is deteriorating to an open conflict. In addition to these two countries, Iran is practically galloping to achieving a military nuclear capability. Turkey is another country that um, the minimum that I can say about them is that they keep on thinking about pursuing a nuclear capability as well. And parallel to Turkey, Egypt is also a candidate to pursue it. Based on foreign sources, they say that Israel is also a nuclear country. You see, the Middle East is full with various countries that are in different stages, but the issue is the same issue: is nuclear capability, nuclear military capability. Um, I forgot to mention Iraq that started to almost reach the capability, and Israel succeeded to eliminate it. Syria started to reach to achieve nuclear capability. This is another case where this effort was stopped militarily. So the Middle East is already in the era of nuclear capability. So how one can distinguish between all the rest nuclear or quasi-nuclear countries in the Middle East and treat only one country, Iran namely, differently by saying Iran is something else, and the only cure to the Iranian threat is by denying them completely this capability. It's a good wish. It's a good target, and I can understand it maybe even more than many other people. But one should be practical and face the situation, face the pro and cons, and and it's not enough to say no. My solution to that problem is one. We should go for this capability and to destroy it, especially when the rest of the world don't share it with you. So um, that's why we can do anything that we in our power to convince the rest of the world, and especially our allies and friends, to do everything that they can do in order to try and undo this capability. Problem is that we cannot impose our our thoughts and our wishes upon our allies. So by default, we have to join them and to try to do the utmost which is possible together by coalition and not by confrontation. This is the essence of my thoughts at this point of time.
I appreciate it. I just want to clarify though, because I mean, you are the one who would know better than anybody else here on the call. But it almost at one point seemed like you were comparing Iran having nuclear weapons to a lot of other countries in the Middle East that have them. But you also talk about in the book that the leader of Iran, both politically and religiously, is a fundamentalist who's seen as infallible, but at least by the state. So
That's a good point, and it deserves to dwell on it a little bit.
I mean, so to us, I'm
Yeah.
more terrified of Iran having nuclear capabilities than, say, Egypt or Jordan, because in my mind, those countries are at least peaceful with Israel. Am I naive to think that they wouldn't be equally as dangerous with nuclear weapons, or is Iran a threat on a different level?
Look, when it comes to life and death issues, you cannot afford to make decisions based on the less than worst case scenario. And the nuclear issue, of course, belongs to those threats that you cannot give yourself any kind of discounts when you are building and making your mind and define your strategy as to handle it. But let me say a few words about the point that you raised, which is the nature, the cultural nature of the present regime in Iran. See, Iran is a Shiite Muslim country. The Shiite, although it is a minority within the wider Islam religion, but 10-15% of the Islamic world are Shiites. Now, religiously, the Shiites are the most extreme a kind of Islam that exists. Just to mention few points. Uh, one, according to the Shia, um, they don't accept the notion of coexistence, a peaceful coexistence between them, the Shiites and the infidels. They they put all other religions within one definition, infidels, meaning the world deserves only real Shiites Muslims to live in it. All others should either convert to become Shiites or else to get done with. Um, which means that you cannot have a dialogue with those people. This is one point, which makes the problem very difficult. The second point is that what you already mentioned, that the spiritual leader who really calls the shots in that country is infallible, which means that everything that comes out from his mouth basically is the word of Allah. And here comes the following question. If and when this guy has the nuclear capability, uh, what kind of a decision will he make? Will he make practical, pragmatic decisions, or will he decide on a messianic kind of decisions? And we are not. When we had the Soviet Union and the USA, we had two secular regimes with uh, secular, educated, pragmatic people who made their decision based on tangible elements. But when you have to deal with somebody who who think who thinks in a messianic kind of way, and by saying messianic, they are talking about the global future caliphate, which will be built only after a prior phase where they eliminate all the infidels. So this is kind of it sounds like coming from a Middle East fairy tale, but this is real. This is the real belief.
No, it's very scary. Mutually assured destruction isn't a deterrent if destruction is the gateway to entering paradise. If that
Yeah,
life is going to be better than this
yeah,
one,
correct.
then hastening it is, which is why it's such a terrifying thought. I think that's one of the
Yeah,
distinctions you make in your book. You talk about the classical terrorism of the first half of the 20th century, as opposed to modern terrorism that we see today that's religiously motivated, that's not about necessarily politics or socioeconomic, but that is about ideology, a clash really between civilizations. Could you elaborate a little bit on that distinction you make for those who are joining us and might not have read your book yet, as well as do you think realistically that we will see an end to terrorism in any kind of future 25, 50, 100 years? Is there a solution to this kind of ideological problem,
okay.
this clash of
Look,
societies?
um, uh, let me say another few things about Iran and the nuclear threat. There is um, between Iran coming a nuclear threat and Iran being destroyed, there is a third possibility as well, which means the change of the present regime. Um, I can tell you that not everybody in Iran, and we are talking about more than 80. They are nearing the 100 million inhabitants. They consist of about 35 different ethnical sects with different cultures and different languages. Iran is not one unique a kind of people, and then you have the difference between those who are ultra radical as Muslims and people who do not subscribe to radical Islam. I uh, I lived 2.5 years in Iran back in the 60s. The country was entirely secular, and Tehran was almost identical to any European or American place in the world. So um, one one effort which may and should be uh, adopted is to encourage the change of the present regime, and to make the country change into a secular or semi-secular, but not that this kind of extremism, and and the country can become to a an honorable member within the family of nations. I know that what I'm saying may sound now as a vision, um, but it happened before. It may happen again. It also happened in other countries. So the combination of economic pressure, of sanctions, of propaganda, of coalitions, all kinds of coalitions that um, that support the idea of the change of the regime in that country. I I don't rule it out entirely. It may take time, of course, but
I'm
it's not.
gonna, sorry, please
Yeah.
finish. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm gonna zoom out for a bit. I'm sure we're gonna get some more questions about these issues moving forward. We go to everybody. I just want to check. Sue, is my audio okay now? I was.
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Apologize to everyone. I want to zoom out and talk a little bit about the Mossad kind of in general in the intelligence gathering world. And again, for anybody interested, the book is Head of the Mossad, and it's recently published in English, and it's an excellent read. You can find it on Amazon. And we know Israel's a startup nation, is the expression we're told. Israel's known for being above and beyond in so many different areas of innovation, from the technological industry, medical research, agriculture, science, all sorts of areas. So my question is, Israel's not such an old country. It's getting older, we all are, but the Mossad is one of the top intelligence agencies in the world alongside the CIA, MI6, and yet Israel's a relatively small country, a relatively new country. What accounts for the Mossad's just growth and just thrust onto the world stage amongst other major intelligence agencies?
Well, to give you the shortest and the and the most correct answer is what we, all of us, call Israeli chutzpah. And I say it seriously. I'm not using it as a as a as a as a joke. And the fact that we have only one country, and we don't see ourselves experiencing a third destruction of the of the no? Hmm? Of the temple. And so far, the good news is that at least part of the Arab world, which was an enemy of us, is being changing. Is changed. We you know. We are talking about the Mossad as an intelligence organization, but the Mossad also did other jobs that didn't have anything to do with intelligence, like peace with Egypt and peace with Jordan. In these two cases, the Mossad was extremely instrumental, and one of the questions which was in the Mossad's and still is in the list of requirement of the Mossad is to look around in the Arab countries and try to identify signs of changes in intention and direction of those countries from being hostile towards being more willing to engage and to reach peace. And Egypt was the first breakthrough. Jordan is the second. Now the Abraham agreements with the Emirates is the third. Even though in numbers it's more than the third, because the Emirates represents more than one national entity, but half a dozen different small country, but independent country, and and Morocco, and hopefully the Palestinians will realize that they slowly but surely they are being pushed to the wall to make one day the decision whether to keep on existing or cease on existing, um, and, uh, and hopefully will be. And now I refer to us Israelis, will be smart enough in order to read correctly the changes in the political tendencies in the Middle East, um, and and uh, and be willing to put our share into this effort and to reach a solution also to the Palestinian question. So I uh, um, I I am optimistic in this sense, because if I'm looking now from a high altitude on the Middle East, and the world, I do see hope for the Middle East also to become a peaceful and successful part in the family of nations.
I appreciate that. And see, we're starting to get some questions in the chat. If you send questions directly to me, we'll move to a Q&A just in a little bit. Shabtai, I mean, the peace agreement with Egypt was 1979, and it was almost 2 decades later, in 1994, when actually, well, you were director of Mossad, that the agreement with Jordan was signed, and we have 4 agreements now this last year. Just very briefly, are you optimistic that more will come, or will it be another 2 decades before there's another shift like this, more agreements?
I I believe that if the Abraham agreements turn to be a success, it will be a turning point, and I do hope that it will be a success based on the common denominator of the Emirates countries, including Saudi Arabia, uh, um, vis-a-vis Iran. Um, you, you know um, the initiative to push those countries towards peace with Israel was the common enemy, the common threat. I've been to all these places during my tenure. We did maintain a political relationship and intelligence and security relationships even during those days. But it is the fact that now they upgraded the relationship is really a big change. It's a big change. And when the Emirates are preaching for peace, and the Saudis support the peace, and the Egyptians and all others, um, the Palestinians, at long last, they are coming to the point where they realize that they cannot expect from the rest of the Arab world to assure their existence as a political entity, and they'll fall into the ranks. I'm sure about it.
So I think now's a great time. We'll move into taking some questions from our audience. And I've gotten some already. If other people want to keep sending them to me, we will take more questions. But the first one I'm going to ask, it's good somebody else asked it, but it's one of the questions I wanted to ask as well. So I get to check two boxes. The technology in the world has changed dramatically in the last couple of decades in terms of things like cameras, drones, social media, and the internet, and access to knowledge and information, all of this. So, my question is, how has that impacted the intelligence world? And really, have these new developments and technology helped agencies like the Mossad to carry out their mission, or helped more the bad actors in the world to carry out their evil plans?
Uh, now the definition of the relationship between the good and the bad guys in the world is that it's a war between a cat and a mice. Um, so each side does its best in order to take advantage of the new technologies that are being developed very speedily. Now the changes, I keep talking, and I recall back in the mid 70s, when we had to. I'll put you into the nitty gritty things of intelligence work. In order to initiate a an operation, which was to take place in a territory of the enemy, the means of communication was a cable which was created by a Morse kind of communication system, which was big, bulky. You had to stretch an antenna of 15, 20 meters. You have to write it, to cipher it, to do a whole of a lot of steps until you succeeded to send this cable. And bear in mind that these kind of cables could be sent only during day night, because during day, not in the night, because of atmospheric situations. Today, with this machine, uh, you can you can speak with the rest of the world, unlimited amount of words, uh, ciphered in such a way that no one can break it. And just try to imagine the difference between sending a cable like I described you before in the mid 70s and today. And this is only one example. Um, the fact that any company commander today in the military owns his private UAVs, which means that it enables him to look to the areas behind the enemy lines in order to get the full picture of the terrain, and so on and so forth. It's just unbelievable. And what one of the good things that we do here in Israel, we um, we put a lot of effort and a lot of education and very many incentives for youngsters to pursue technology and science. And I can be proud by telling you that my eldest grandkid, who's 27 years old, he is now doing his master's degrees in what is being called, and I don't understand exactly what does it mean, but they call it data science. Now, the data science is considered to be at the top, at the end of technology of these years, and he's doing now his second year of it, and the technological jobs are are being paid very handsomely, and they encourage. And he already started to work in with the famous Israeli company, the um, no,
Wow.
I'll,
One other question.
it will come. Never mind. One of the most famous, most famous technological Israeli companies, the high tech.
Mazel tov to your grandson. It's
Yeah,
exciting to hear what he's doing, and it's these changes I imagine have benefited both intelligence agencies as well as the bad actors in the
yeah.
world. One of the questions we have is you've worked both as director and just in your decades in Mossad under different prime ministers. Do any of them stand out to you as someone that you particularly respected and found just as a guidance for leadership and their way they conducted themselves in the country?
Well, I served under three prime ministers. The first one was Yitzhak Shamir, who appointed me to the job. The second was Yitzhak Rabin, and the third one was Shimon Peres, which um, uh, who became the prime minister immediately after the assassination of Rabin, and he served for 6 months until the elections took place. But so I worked with each one of the first two about 3.5 years. They are entirely different kind of people, entirely different kind of personalities, entirely different background and culture and political views. Uh, but I must admit, and I am believe me, I am completely transparent. I loved any 1 minute with my work with the two of them, even though they entirely different two kind of people. what I can say, and this is um, it's a bit sad to me for me to say that today um, politics is being used too much in the decision-making processes in our country. I cannot recall all along 7 years as being in the circle of decision making process on the most important and most secret and most sensitive questions of the country. I cannot recall I cannot recall even once that either of them did a political answer to a professional problem.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's unmuted. There we go. One of the questions we got is some questions about the issues right now with the Palestinian conflict. So somebody wants to know just what is your, again, we know you're not a prophet, but given your experience and knowledge, what do you think about future prospects to Palestinians accepting Israel's existence and being able to reach an agreement? Is there leadership in place? Is there have to be a leadership change before that can happen? What do you see as the in a short bit? Just what is your vision for
Well,
a way
I'll
forward?
I'll I'll uh, I'll answer you um, in this way. You see, we have about 12% of Palestinian Arabs as citizens of the state of Israel. Now, if I look on the Palestinian Arabs who lives in the state, I can pinpoint to a very clear distinction that they are undergoing at the present time. And this is the distinction between the era of confrontation, identify with the Palestinians who live outside Israel, and uh, uh, doing their utmost in order to absorb into the Israeli system. You find them. I mean, the number of people, younger and older, mainly younger, who become gradually but surely absorbed into the Israeli system is unbelievable. A decade ago, an Arab youngster in front of a microphone would not open his mouth in Hebrew. Today, you have in every one of the television nets Israeli Arab youngsters, boys and even girls who speak Hebrew without accent.
Wow.
You people, Arab people, Palestinians, they are not afraid to say today that they want, once they live in Israel, they want to become, um, when it comes to content, they want to become and feel and to become citizens of the country, and to put aside the conflict, because how many years a person lives, and how many years are left to live. They want to become absorbed into the system. This is my observation.
It's good to hear your optimism. It makes me optimistic. I imagine you see things even now that the rest of us don't necessarily see or notice. One of the questions someone has is that you've had some comments recently about Prime Minister Netanyahu and also with the upcoming election. So someone wants to know what your opinion are on the elections, on Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the future of Israel's leadership. Easy question, I know, right? Short, easy.
So I I I prefer to deal or to discuss issues, not personalities. And I think that after 72 years, it's time for us to change a chapter, or to turn a page. We fought for 70 years for our independence. Let's decide that we want the other 70 years live in another kind of life, and to afford ourselves and our kids and the next generation to live in a normal kind of country. And in order to do it, you have to make a very simple, many people would say that very significant, in order to achieve it. You have to decide that life is more precious than territory. That's all. And I'll add you the following. Let's say that we decide and succeed to annex the greatest dream of the Jewish people, to inherit the all of the Middle East. What's going to be left for our kids to do? we, we have to leave them something to do.
Well,
so
really
this is and whoever politician that thinks differently, I wouldn't vote for him. That's
it really is reflective in your own actions. I mean, you talk about in your book how you chose to step down after 7 years as head of the Mossad. You thought you had done what you could do, and it was time to start a new chapter for yourself and for the Mossad, to let somebody else sit there. Do you have time? I want to be respectful of your time. Is it okay if I ask you
it's okay.
a couple more questions?
Go on. Yeah.
So part of Mossad's mission, besides protecting Israel itself, is protecting Jews in the diaspora, as well as seeking justice against those who have committed crimes or attacked the Jewish people. And we've seen this in various films and television, in the film The Red Sea Diving Resort regarding rescuing Jews in Ethiopia, and the Steven Spielberg film Munich regarding the Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics. I imagine you've seen both of these, or at least know about them. I'm curious, how accurate are these Hollywood portrayals of what Mossad does? Are these relatively accurate? I'm sure there are Hollywood leniencies taken, or are these really kind of fantasy fiction, the way they portray it?
Look, what Hollywood does is first and foremost for the sake of business. And if for the sake of better rating, you have to change a story, they won't hesitate to do it. You mentioned the Spielberg movie on Munich.
Yeah.
I I I I did see it, and I was very furious about it. And I remember that time I expressed my opinion, even though at that time I still was in my capacity. On public record, I said to a hall full of people that I didn't like the scene in the movie where the team of the Mossad operatives were immediately after they finished the operation, which was assassinating a human being. They rushed to party in a nightclub. To this day, I remember this scene, and it made me crazy because life is different.
Wow.
Real life is that when you finish this kind of a of an operation, and I can tell it to you from personal experience, the 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 exact scene is that each one of the participants look for a corner in a safe house or in a hotel room and spend the time alone contemplating on what he is just finished to do.
Wow. I know, or at least I believe, in terms of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, that there are ethical bodies and commissions or committees that guide and discuss plans and military actions. And I believe there are rabbis involved in that process about Jewish law as consulted.
Yeah.
I'm curious, with Mossad carries out operations, are is halakha or Jewish ethics considered in terms of ordering such acts? I don't know what we're allowed to say on camera in terms of carrying out an
Look, we have
assassination.
we if you look in the Bible, you'll find uh, I'm not making jokes, but you can find instructions also almost to any kind of activity or an operation. Look, what were we as a people ordered by the God Almighty to do to Amalek? You
To wipe them out.
Rabbi, yeah,
To wipe them out, erase the memory.
to
We just
wipe
said this
them
at
out.
Purim.
Yeah, to measure them with a yeah. So the halacha in this case is relatively liberal.
That's fair. One of the questions someone has is, earlier this year we saw right-wing protesters storming in the United States Capitol, and these growing divides in all parts of the world with a kind of a political right. And we're not asking you to be a prophet, but in your expertise, do you think the next attack on a country like America is going to come from Islamic fundamentalists, or is going to come from right-wing groups from within?
This this is a good this is a good guess. I I'll answer you the following. Both of them are striving to to accomplish this kind of things. The only question is who will succeed who, and who was the first one, and who will follow. Both of them was to knock down America. Both of them want to knock down the democratic system, and yeah, America should prepare for this kind of an eventuality. And to me, I must tell you that I was sitting in front of the TV, and I was whispering to myself, we are seeing in front of our eyes the end of democracy of the #1 country in the world.
Wow. Well,
Thank-
I want to thank you so much, Shabtai, for joining us. Again, I'll remind everybody that his book is called The Head of the Mossad, and it's In Pursuit of a Safe and Secure Israel. You can find it online. It is available on Amazon Canada for anybody that wants it.
We also have a special offer from the publisher that we'll send out tomorrow. If people want to buy it directly from the publisher, they're offering a discount. So we will do that too.
Great. I also just want to say, and I'll pass it back to Sue. Thank you so much, Shabtai, for joining me. It really is a pleasure and honor to get to sit across from you virtually to ask these questions. And thank you so much, Sue. It's always a pleasure to get to work with classy lectures and all of the amazing stuff that you guys do. And if anybody ever wants to hear more from me for whatever reason, you can always find me on Instagram there at Rabbi Sachs. And really, thank you, Shabtai. Thank you, Sue, so much for this opportunity.
And I want to thank you for your patience. And yeah, I see this kind of lectures as part of my reserve service to the state of Israel.
Well,
Thank
we think you do a great job, Shabtai. You gave us so much information. I think we're left with a very good message. Cooperation, not confrontation. So thank you, Shabtai. Thank you, Rabbi Sachs. And thank you to Gail Kurtzman and the staff at Beth Tikva for helping make this possible. And to Norman Shaw for his inspiration, and to Ronnie. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
אם I may, תודה